Okay, this video is just going to take you through the basic setting up a sprite, setting a graphic for a sprite, setting up some control for a sprite so you can move it around, and restricting the sprite to an area. Okay, so that's what this video is. So I've got the template set up, and I do like the way the mouse is flickering. I'm having to look at the video screen to find out where the mouse is, which is bizarre. But anyway, right, so I'm going to create this in Title. So I'm opening up the Title in Solution Explorer, and I'm going to open Title Setup. And I'm just going to create this sprite here in the constructor for title setup. So I'm just going to say sprite s equals new. I'm going to call it player. Now I don't want any of those that the picker's showing, so I'm going to press escape to hide the picker. Oops. Okay, so that doesn't exist. I'm going to do control dot, and I'm going to select the first item there that says generate class in a new file. So it creates that for me. Now I've put this sprite s equals so that the IDE knows that this is a sprite type and it will do some work for me. So I'm going to delete that now. I don't actually want a reference to the player. The player is going to do all its work itself. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all these using statements at the top that include some of the things I might need, and I'm going to take them to the player class that's just been created. So just above where it's put the engine in already for me, I'm just going to add those so that I'm not like, as I'm typing, it's wondering what the hell I'm talking about. So you can see it's created this class and it's inherited from Sprite, which is what the colon Sprite means. So we're going to start off by creating a constructor. Okay, so it has the same name as the class. Put my braces in for a start. With the Sprite, the first thing I need to do is add the Sprite to the engine so that this engine manager knows that it's updating and displaying the Sprite. I then want to define a frame. Okay, so what I have got access to is this. So I'm going to use one of these pieces of text from this graphic, but this doesn't help me much, the default viewer. So I'm going to close that. So I'm going to right click on sprites. So I'm in the content part of the project now, and I'm going to say open with, and then I'm going to search for, and I haven't got fireworks, so I'm going to add it. So I'm going to click on add, then I'm going to click the ellipses, and I'm going to now navigate in the program files to Adobe, which is there, and then I'm going to look for fireworks, and then I'm going to scroll down until I find the executable. Okay, and then I'm going to open it. If I set it as default, every time I double click this, it'll load it up. Okay, so it's just going to load that up. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, right, we want a texture, but we only want a portion of that texture, and that's what we're going to use fireworks to find out for us. Okay, so I want one of these up here, and you can see that highlights, but there's a load of blank at the bottom, so that's not going to help me. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to draw a rectangle over the graphic. Okay. If I go down here and I change the transparency, I should be able to see the graphic underneath. I'm also going to get rid of the edge. So I'm clicked on here next to the pen. I'm going to set that transparent, and I'm going to change the fill color from white to something a little bit easier to see, so green. Right, so I've got a little bit of a border, but I'm not too bothered about that. But that is roughly the portion of the texture that I want. So I'm going to look down here in the properties, and it says 0, 3, and then 317 pixels wide, 51 high. So they're the numbers I'm going to use. So I'm going to come back to me C#, and I'm going to say frame.define. Now I need to know what texture that's in. So at the minute, that is the one that's already been loaded, which is TX Sprite in GM. Okay, I'll do another video where I explain that. how to load a graphic. So that's in a separate video. There is one on there. It hasn't changed in this version of the engine. I then need to specify the rectangle. So I say new rectangle, and that's where I want the four numbers, the X, Y, width, and height. So if I go back to fireworks, the X and Y is 0, 3, and the width is 317, and the height was 51. Okay, so that specifies what I want on the screen, and I'm just going to put this on the screen. So I'm going to set me X and Y. So I'm going to say gm.screen-size.center.x. So I'm going to put this in the center horizontally, and I'm going to move it down near the bottom of the screen. Whoops. So I'm going to say gm.screen-size.bottom, and then I want to be up from the bottom a bit. So I'm going to put 100. Okay, so I'm going to run that and see what we get. It's just building. So there you go, I've got shoot a game down here. That's the graphic. You can see it's up from the bottom of the screen. Okay, now I want to move this about because it was going to be a play, but I'm just using that as my example graphic. So to do that, I need to do an update routine. So I'm going to say update callback, and I'm going to say plus equals because we can add multiple methods to call, and I'm going to call this move. Okay, so it doesn't exist. I'm going to create generate method play.move, and it creates that. It makes it private because it's internal to the player class and no one else needs to know about it. And what this is going to do is interrogate the input manager to find out what keys are being pressed. So what we'll do is we'll just move it around left and right using the cursor key. So we can say gm.inputmanager.key down, and then we say keys.left. So we just say what key we're testing, put our braces in, and then to move left, we're going to subtract from the X position, and we need to keep it in pixels per second. So what we use, we say how many pixels we want to move in 1 second. So let's do 400. And then to achieve that, we have to use the event manager that keeps track of time for us, and it's delta value. And that is just a fraction of a second for the current frame, because this might be running 100 times a second. So we need to divide it effectively by 100th of a second. So we move 4 pixels per frame, not 400. Okay, so that'll move left. Right. And we'll do the same for right. Okay, so plus goes right, minus goes left. So all we're doing is saying if key's down, do this action. So let's run that and see what happens. So you can say, can I move it left and right? It goes off the screen, which is not a behavior I want. So let's fix that. And we can do that with limit boxes. So we turn on in the constructor limit initialize, and then we say limit dot viewport action, which is the screen area, and we say limit dot stop at. And you see there's loads of different methods you can use. So we're going to say stop at. Okay, so let's run that and see what that does. And you'll see that it's doing this skipping. Now there's a reason for that. By default, the limit actions are acted on before we do any update code. So what's happening is if the sprite's gone off the screen, the limit box is pushing it back on, but then we do our move code here, which can push it back off the screen. So that's the wrong order. So there is a system where we can switch this. We can say update before limit equals true. So what we're effectively saying is do our code, then see if you need to fix it and put it back on screen, stop it going outside of screen. Okay, so if we do that this time, you'll see that it doesn't go off screen, which is the behavior we wanted. Okay, so that's always one thing to remember. We can put the other keys in. So if we go if gm dot input manager, use the picker always when you're doing this, and we'll say right. So if we press the I picked the wrong thing. Keys dot up. So if we want to go up, and that's going to be the y value that changes. Up is negative, so we say minus equals, and we'll go at the same speed. And we want delta, not delay call. And we'll do the same for coming down, but that's obviously going to be a different key. So key down, keys dot down. So that's the down cursor keys. If you want to change it to WSD, you can do. I personally hate that. And that's to go down, we add. Okay, so let's try that. And you can see it's going around the screen. So that's basic sprite control. Okay, and I'll stop the video there.